Welcome to Dashing Dish. Today we're celebrating all things chocolate. And my dad, who loves all things chocolate, is gonna join in to see if I can truly make chocolate healthy. Our menu includes chocolate chip icebox cake with chocolate chip cookies and a rich chocolate mousse center, my favorite, peanut butter cups, decadent double chocolate cookies, and a creamy mocha shake. It's all about chocolate, and it's coming up next. Today's show is all about my favorite food group, chocolate. Well, maybe chocolate isn't exactly a food group, but growing up in my house, it was, because my dad, who we nicknamed Mr. Chocolate, was all about all things chocolate, and I'm pretty sure he ate it every single day. So in my world, it became a food group. So we're gonna start off today's show with one of my favorite chocolate desserts. It's the most simple chocolate dessert I think you could make, and it's a chocolate chip cookie icebox cake. And how I started it is I just started by softening some cream cheese in a bowl here. And to this, I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, a 1/4 cup of sweetener, a 1/4 cup of almond milk, or any type of milk that you like. And then I'm just gonna kind of give it a little bit of a head start stir here, because if you turn on your mixer right away, you'll be totally dusted, or your house will, with chocolate, which won't necessarily be a bad thing, but your hair might not thank you later. And that looks perfect. The only thing you want to make sure about is that it's really creamy and smooth, so there's no chunks or lumps left of the cocoa powder. So that looks perfect. And then I'm gonna add some whipped topping. Now I like to use True Whip. True Whip is just a brand of basically what we all know is frozen whipped topping that is a little bit better for you. It doesn't have as many of the chemicals and the additives. Usually you can find it in your groceries freezer, but any type of whipped topping or even homemade whipped cream that you whip yourself is perfect for this. Then very important is here you want to gently fold in the whipped cream. You don't want to beat that in because this has a lot of air, so it will lose all the air and totally flatten out on you. So we're gonna continue to fold it until it's all totally mixed in and combined. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you wanna start to see where the chocolate and the whipped cream are blended together. And so I have so many funny stories about my dad growing up and his love for chocolate. But one that really stands out in my mind is that there was a chocolate shop where you could get samples when you walked in. And so we would watch my dad from the outside walking in. He was like a little kid. Me and my whole family stood outside because we realized, oh my gosh, you get a whole chocolate bar when you walk in. Not just a little tiny piece, but a whole bar. So we all just watched him as he walked in, like a kid entering a toy store. And when he walked in and got the chocolate bar, he came out and he started to think and devise ways, just obviously joking, where he could go in and have disguises so that he could keep going in for more and more chocolate. And so we were all cracking up. And to this day, we still talk about our chocolate disguises that we're gonna wear in order to get some free samples. So what an icebox cake is essentially, it's almost like a trifle. You don't have to bake anything. You literally just make layers of cookies and whipped mousse. So you could do any type of spin on this. I'm gonna do just chocolate chip cookies on the bottom, but you could do any kind of cookies you like. The only thing you want to think about when you're choosing your cookies, you could even do graham crackers, is just something that's crunchy and crispy, because this mousse topping is going to go on top, and as it sits, it's going to kind of soak into the cookies and soften them a little bit, which will be absolutely delicious. But if you start with a really soft cookie, then it'll just be a soggy mess. So you want something that's a little bit crispy. So you could do gluten-free cookies, you could do dairy-free, you could even make your own. And that looks great. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just enough to line the bottom of an 8x8 pan. And then I'm gonna pour about half of this mousse into there. And this already looks so good. And I'm just gonna spread it out evenly over the cookie layer. And you can see how simple this is. I love to make icebox cakes for any type of occasion, but especially in the summertime because you don't have to turn your oven on. And the nice thing is you can make these ahead up to 2 days in advance. And I think that the longer that they sit in the fridge, the better. So you don't have to perfectly cover this with cookies. We have about 1 package of cookies here. So if you find you run short, because sometimes I do, then you can start to kind of crumble the cookies over the top too. And you could even do it like this from the beginning where you just kind of crumble them on top. You really can't tell where the layers of the cookies and the whipped cream kind of collide because it all just tastes like a delicious dessert when it comes together anyway. And that's what I love about trifles and icebox cakes is they're all just delicious coming together with layers of cake, cookies, whipped cream. You can't go wrong. Then I'm gonna top the rest off with the rest of our mousse layer. And you know, chocolate gets a really bad rap for being something that's unhealthy. And so a lot of times people think if they like chocolate and they want to eat healthy that they suddenly have to cut it out altogether. But at Dashing Dish, I'm all about teaching people how to find healthy alternatives because I strongly believe that if you are a chocolate fan, like my dad, you're never gonna say goodbye to chocolate forever. And of course, all things in moderation are good and okay when it comes to food. However, I figure why not be able to enjoy chocolate daily? Because my dad's going to anyway. So if we put a healthy spin on it, then you can enjoy your favorites. And so this is a really delicious chocolate dessert that took me no time at all to bring together. And so that's what I think of when I think of my dad, is whenever I cook for him or bake for the family, I think about what can I make that's chocolate for my dad? I always have to bring something chocolate with me. In fact, he always starts to investigate dessert before we even finish dinner. And he says, all right, what's chocolate for me? And it's cute because all of his grandkids call him Mr. Chocolate now as well. And so they all know when they see Grandpa, they get a little piece of chocolate whenever he's around. So I just topped it off with some chocolate chips and this looks perfect. Now I'm just gonna set it in the fridge until a little bit later when Mr. Chocolate comes by to get a taste test. My relationship with my dad is really special, mostly because we're alike in so many ways. My dad and I are both hard workers, planners, and to-do list junkies, and our love for getting things done often translates into how we love others, which is through acts of service. When I was growing up, my dad would constantly be looking for ways to serve our family. From oil changes to filing taxes, my dad would demonstrate that he loved us by doing things for us. Now that my sisters and I have families of our own, my dad serves not only as a father, but also as a grandpa. From doing the dishes, playing with the kids, or even taking us on a boat ride, my dad does everything with a servant's heart. I love the fact that I can share so many qualities with my dad. From planning to serving, we sure know how to get things done. And we can both agree that at the end of the day, everything is better with chocolate. I don't know about you, but the perfect combination is chocolate and peanut butter. So on a show that's dedicated completely to chocolate, I thought we have to do something with chocolate and peanut butter. And what could be better than clean eating chocolate peanut butter cups? Let me show you how I made the peanut butter filling. To start, I lined a small baking pan with parchment paper and set it aside. Then I mixed everything together for the filling of the peanut butter cups in a medium mixing bowl. 1/4 cup of protein powder, 1/2 cup of oat flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 cup of peanut butter. I also added 1/4 cup of sweetener and 3 tablespoons of applesauce. I then stirred everything together until it was well combined, and I knew it was ready when the mixture resembled a cookie dough. I placed the ball of dough onto a clean surface and rolled it out with a rolling pin. I rolled it until the dough was about 1/4 inch thick, and then cut the dough into small circles. Once the dough was all used up, I placed the circles on my prepared baking pan and placed it in the freezer for about 30 minutes or until the peanut butter dough was firm. So my peanut butter cup filling is all firmed up. I just popped it into the freezer for about 10 minutes. And you want to make sure that it's really cold so it's easy to dip in melted chocolate. Then I did about a half cup of chocolate melted in the microwave. You can do dairy-free or even sugar-free chocolate chips if you prefer. And then I'm just going to kind of roll the peanut butter cup filling into the chocolate. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. I like to use my best kitchen tools, my hands. You could use a spoon or a fork if you don't want to get dirty, but this is the best part at the end, obviously, licking your fingers. And peanut butter cups are near and dear to my heart. I think it's because I grew up every holiday enjoying them. I think my mom got us the pumpkin ones every single Halloween, and then the Christmas tree shape for every single Christmas. So that is just something that reminds me of my childhood. So you could do, instead of the circle cookie cutters, you could do a Christmas tree, you could do a pumpkin, and really make these your own. You could even do them for Valentine's Day with little hearts. So these are absolutely delicious, and they're also packed with protein. They have no added sugar, aside from the chocolate, of course. And like I said, you can even pick out what type of chocolate chips you use. And then these are really easy to finish off because we're just gonna pop them into the freezer when they're all set and just firm them up, and then they're ready to pull out and enjoy. Chocolate often gets a bad rap for being indulgent and unhealthy, but there are ways to enjoy your favorite cocoa treats in a healthier way. Baking with unsweetened cocoa powder allows you to enjoy the flavors of chocolate, all while controlling the amount of sugar and added ingredients. Coming up next, grain-free, gluten-free, crisp on the outside and chewy in the middle. It's my double chocolate cookies that are sure to please. What if I told you that you could not only have chocolate cookies, but double chocolate cookies? Yes, it's possible, and I'm going to show you how. We have all of our ingredients right here, and the main star of this is going to be our cocoa powder, but also our almond flour. Almond flour is a really good swap out to make your baking dishes a lot lighter and also better for you. So I have 2 cups of almond flour. Then we have a half cup of cocoa powder, and cocoa powder is really awesome whenever you're using chocolate for a dish, because basically it gives you the chocolate flavor that you're looking for, but without all the sweeteners and all the additives and the oils and butters. So that's why a lot of times I like to make my own chocolate dishes at home, because then I can control everything that goes into the dish. Then I did a half cup of sweetener, half teaspoon of baking powder, and that just helps them rise a little bit. And then half teaspoon of salt. And I like to add salt whenever I'm baking because it offsets the sweetness perfectly. So that's our dry ingredients that we mix into a bowl. We're just gonna give it a little mix here. And I love to use almond flour when I'm baking for the nutritional benefits as well. It tastes really good. It has the natural fats from the almonds so that your cookies are never dry or bland, but it also is really good for you. Almonds are very heart healthy, and they have a lot of nutrients that support your immune system and your joints. And so it's really good for you. I like to give it to Maddie oftentimes in baked goods. In fact, she eats these cookies for breakfast. And then just about 2 tablespoons of maple syrup and a 1/3 cup of applesauce. And those are our wet ingredients, and we're just gonna stir to combine this just until a cookie dough forms. And you could see how simple these were. So a lot of times when people think of chocolate and cookies, they think, oh, you know, I can't have that because it's not good for you. And then people see me giving Maddie cookies for breakfast, and they wonder what kind of mom I am. And they're like, wait, I thought you ate healthy. But so really, these cookies are just almond flour, so it's almonds that are ground up, cocoa powder, which are really rich in antioxidants, and applesauce, a little maple syrup, and some sweetener. So it really has all the foundational elements to a really good meal, snack, or even dessert. And here I am talking about cookies being breakfast, but we're gonna make them a little bit sweeter so that they actually are dessert as well. And we're gonna add our chocolate chips. So you can add about a 1/4 cup of chocolate chips to the mix, or a little bit more since it is a chocolate show. You can go crazy. And we're just gonna stir those in. Okay, so that looks great and it came together into a cookie dough. So you could either scoop them up using a cookie scoop or you can just kind of roll them into balls with your hands. You just want to make them close to the similar size so that they bake at the same speed. And so you can kind of press them down just a little bit. Since these cookies don't have butter in them, they won't flatten like typical cookies. So if you kind of shape them, they will spread just a little bit, but if you flatten them, then it helps them bake up perfectly. And the relationship that I have with my dad is really cool because we're very similar in nature. We're both a little bit more on the quiet side, but we both love to serve. So that's kind of our love language and our giftings. So typically whenever it's a party full of people in a room, my dad and I will be the ones that are kind of looking around and thinking, okay, how can I serve our guests that are here? And I find that Maddie has a very similar personality. Not only do we all three love chocolate, which is really fun, but she's kind of like my dad in a lot of ways. She's a little bit more quiet until she gets to know you. So it's been really neat to now watch her relationship with my dad and see how they're very similar as well. So we're just gonna continue rolling, and these cookies are so delicious. They're kind of a little bit more crisp on the outside, but soft and chewy on the inside. And you would never guess that they don't have any white flour or white sugar in them. And that's another thing that's very similar about my dad and I, is that we both have always had a real sensitivity to sugar. We don't do very well with having a lot of sugar. Usually our blood sugar is very sensitive to candy bars or any kind of chocolate treats that have a lot of sugar in them. And so I find that whenever I make something with monk fruit sweetener or stevia, but it still is cocoa powder, it's a great way to enjoy the treats that we both love with chocolate. But it doesn't get that insulin spike and it makes us feel much better all throughout the day. And so that's the benefit of making healthier swaps and finding healthy alternatives, is not just about having your pants fit better and enjoying chocolate, but it's also about feeling good. And so that is what I look for whenever I'm trying to create a recipe, is how can I create this in a healthier way that really supports and nourishes our bodies and our health. So I'm gonna pop these into the oven, 350 degrees for about 12 minutes, just until they're set. And then when we come back, we're gonna put a chocolate spin on a coffee drink. Have you ever had one of those days when you feel like you have nothing left to give? In those moments, 1 Peter reminds us that when we serve, we are truly serving the Lord. We can see an excellent portrayal of this in Matthew 25, when Jesus discussed the parable of the talents. This parable portrays 3 servants whom were given talents. 2 of the 3 went out and used their talents entrusted to them, while the 3rd servant buried his. The 2 that were good stewards were rewarded with even more, and the unjust steward ultimately had everything taken away. Likewise, when we faithfully use the talents that God has given us to serve, we can be sure that He will entrust us with more. What could be better than a creamy blended coffee drink with ice? Well, one with chocolate, of course. Today we're gonna make a chocolate mocha frappe at home. And oftentimes when we think about these drinks, we think about coffee shops and really expensive drinks, but today I'm gonna make one that'll probably cost you around less than $1. And we're gonna start with cottage cheese. And if you think that the thought of cottage cheese sounds strange, trust me, you do not know what's in there. It just makes the shake really creamy and rich. But if the dairy, in fact, hurts your stomach, you can just go ahead and use banana or yogurt or any other swap out for the cottage cheese. Then to this, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of instant coffee, sweetener to taste. So I'm gonna do about a tablespoon of sweetener, and then a ½ cup of protein powder. Then I'm gonna add my ice. So this is kind of just eyeballing it. I do about a cup or 2 of ice. And then I'm gonna add my almond milk. Now, a typical drink from a coffee shop runs about 50 grams of sugar and anywhere from 200 to 400 calories for one drink. So this version has just 3 grams of sugar and 40 grams of protein. Okay, that looks perfect. So then I'm just gonna pour it into 2 glasses. And how good does that look? Now, if there's one story that really stands out in my mind when it comes to coffee and chocolate with my dad, is that not only does he love chocolate, but he also loves coffee. And so one time when we went to a hotel, they had some chocolate-covered coffee beans that were a part of the snack tray in the hotel that you could purchase. And so my dad purchased them and ate the entire bag of espresso beans that are covered in chocolate. And he didn't realize that they also have caffeine in them. And so the rest of the night, he was basically trembling from an overdose of caffeine and sugar. But he learned his lesson, and I still think he loves coffee and chocolate just as much. However, he's not gonna touch those espresso beans anymore. Now I'm gonna go find my dad to see if Mr. Chocolate approves of all our chocolate goodies and if they get the official Mr. Chocolate taste test approval. Coming up next, my dad joins me to try all the chocolate treats I made for his chocolate-loving heart.
If you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice at the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker.
There are different ways of expressing and receiving love, and everyone speaks love differently. The 5 love languages are 5 different ways of expressing and receiving love. They include words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. When speaking love to those around us, it can be helpful to understand the different ways to give and receive love. Well, Mr. Chocolate himself is in the house today to do the official Dashing Dish taste test. Dad, I made all of these chocolate delicacies for you, and especially to get your chocolate taste of approval. So we have a chocolate chip cookie icebox cake, chocolate peanut butter cups.
Oh, so
I know,
good.
Can't go wrong with that.
So good.
We have double chocolate cookies, and then we
Excellent.
have a chocolate frappe drink with coffee and chocolate blended up together. So I'll let you decide which one you want to try first.
I'm gonna try the cookies.
All right.
Yeah, they look
I'll
amazing.
pass one to you. Double chocolate
Thank you.
cookies.
Thank you.
And I know that you'll approve because it's double chocolate. Well, for more recipes just like these, head over to dashingdish.com where you will find recipes and more to nourish your body and soul.
These are so good.